无边无际的大海，那海面波涛汹涌，我们不畏惧艰险，让我们手牵着手，让我们肩并着肩，美好明天在眼前。
Здравствуйте, my fair weather friends, and welcome back to another episode of Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks, as well as the final installment in the summer of Fallout. And might I say, it wasn't as easy to find Fallout creepypastas for this little event of mine as I originally thought. But enough about that. Today's featured creepypasta is titled Fallout 4 Revenge is Sweet by Truant12. In the glass cannon business that is the gaming industry, jobs don't exactly grow on trees. And when a new employee is hired by Bethesda to playtest their upcoming game, Fallout 4, he will have to contend with the one who came before. And, if you'll pardon the pun, the acrimonious fallout that ensues. How far would a disgruntled employee go to get revenge on their former place of business? Well, there is only one way to find out. And so, without any further ado, let us begin Fallout 4 Revenge is Sweet by Truant12. About a year ago, I got what was considered to be the greatest job ever. I had been hired by Bethesda to help test their games and aid them in fixing bugs. These are big games, so sometimes bugs slip through the cracks, or deadlines prohibit them from being fixed. So, sorry. When I got inside and had my orientation, I got what was considered to be some of the best news of my life. I'd get to help test Fallout 4. I was told my assignment was simple at this point. I was to beat the game as fast as I could in any way I saw fit, all while writing down any bugs I saw, or any glaring problems that seemed to enter my mind. I started playing but kept my mind open, knowing bugs and glitches would be abundant. I still remember exiting the cryopod to have my character fall through the floor on my first go. But, all in all, it had amazed me how well they had the game made already. I happily played through, and was thrilled when I joined the Brotherhood of Steel to find that Liberty Prime was back, and I damn near cried when I saw Sean on his deathbed, angry at me. At work, on the other hand, I was genuinely liked, as I had replaced this rather interesting fellow. We'll call him Nick to keep his identity a secret. Nick had been fired for threatening a female employee with bodily harm. He was a slacker and a general creep whom no one liked, so they were all too glad to see him go. Within 2 days, I had the game beat. We could take it home for 6 hours of overtime a night, and I turned in my notes. I was then told to log at least another 100 hours in-game, and that I was to check each area in the Salem sector of the map, the northeastern corner that is, and give feedback. I was thrilled to see on my list of places to visit was Dunwich Borers. For those who don't know, the guys behind Fallout love H.P. Lovecraft's horror novels, and the company Dunwich Borers LLC, a play on the Lovecraft novel Dunwich Horrors, was their homage to him. Typically, each place was related to the supernatural and occult, and could be good for some genuine spooks. I decided to save the best for last, and waited to go into the Borers on my last day of playing, when I could go home, curl up under a blanket, and scare myself with what I'd see. When the night finally came, I kissed my wife goodnight at 10, went to my office, sat in my chair, and journeyed to the Borers. On the outside, things were very much like they are now. A ton of raiders, including one in power armor, patrolling the outside, along with some burnt skeletons in a cage in the bottom. I quickly mowed through them and went into the mines below. This is where things got weird. You see, the inside seemed to be empty. No machinery, nothing artificial, not even a light, making it so I had to use my Pip-Boy and a night vision scope on my laser rifle to even see where I was going. So I wrote in my notes that it didn't seem too believable, and that maybe they should add some equipment inside to make the area seem more realistic. I loved the lighting though. It gave the area an atmosphere of not knowing what was to come. I headed down into the mines, and within a few minutes was startled when the cave started to shake, like an earthquake was happening. Further down, I found a group of raiders. The odd thing was, only one was alive. He wore bloody clothing and was missing an arm. This surprised me because humans couldn't lose limbs without dying. I put it off, figuring the developers had specifically made this guy as a scare. Keeping my sights on him, I approached him to see if he would attack, or if he'd do something. Once I was about 5 feet from him, he let out an ear-piercing screech and ran at me, clutching a machete. I quickly killed him, and he took the wounded animation, like what you'd get if you shot a key NPC. He looked at me and said, "He will have your head. No one can come into his sight without going mad." He then laughed and died. My eyes went wide and I carried on. "Damn, going full-out psychological horror. Props there," I whispered. As I carried further down, I heard a deep voice echo through the caves. "Come no further, Seth, lest you wish to go mad and feel my revenge." At first, I was shocked. Did the game know my name? I laughed at the thought, though, after a second, and reminded myself, "You named your character Seth. Qualtoth calls you by name, so they probably did the same here," I whispered to myself, surprised to see all the effort they put in. I carried on around a corner and heard, "Fine, you have doomed yourself." A jump scare of a ghoul's face flashed on my screen, making me jump before I was rushed to the front by 5 to 8 new creatures. They were called Hellspawn. They looked like reskinned feral ghouls with red skin and fire seeping through it. This became the only source of light other than my Pip-Boy. I went into vats and made short work of them. They were only a little more durable than normal ferals after all. I heard the voice again. "Congratulations, mortal. You have passed the first test. The test of body. Now you must pass the test of mind to be graced with my presence." I carried on like normal, excited to see what the test of mind was. I found soon that lanterns began to guide the path at my feet, making it so I could switch off the Pip-Boy. I didn't know, though, that a personal hell awaited me. The lanterns led me to a narrow crevice, just big enough to walk through. I began to hear music as I entered, slow and eerie, as I found myself unable to move faster than a walk. I heard the voice say once more, "No mortal has ever survived this. The test of mind will end you." My hell began as I suddenly saw an image of a real-life accident scene. A mangled corpse that had been cut in half by a truck. It looked like someone had slipped in and took a picture with a camera phone. I nearly vomited at the sight. I began to retch and heave. "What the fuck?" I said. "What is wrong with these people? You can't have that in a game." As I went further and further to see what other depraved shit they had in it. I was greeted by more images, and even a few short videos. A pregnant woman killed, with her child cut out and lying next to her. A man with his head split open. Even a clip of a man blowing his brains out with a pistol. All of these eventually made me vomit into my trash can. Soon enough, I made it to the end, and was greeted with a bunch of lanterns surrounding a stone eye. "Congrats, you made it to the end, Seth," I heard, a voice filled with spite. "But I have one more image for you, one that shows you my own personal demon." An image flashed. This time I was greeted with my own face, a day before I started my job, at the supermarket with my wife. You see, Seth, you ended me. You took my job. You took my every reason for living. I know I could never kill you, but I could kill your spirit. You see, this modded disc was my idea when I was told I had 3 days before I was let go. I knew they would have you come here, and now you get to be the first to know that I am going to kill myself 3 days after your first day of work. This is on you, Seth. I am dead because of you. And isn't that a bitch? The game then crashed, and I was left in shock. My mind went racing to Nick, the man I had replaced. How no one liked him, and in his shoes, I'd probably be pissed off as well. I didn't blame him for blaming me. Hell, I even blamed myself at this point. I immediately called my boss and let him know of my experience, and he told me he was on his way and would call 911. I went up and woke my wife, telling her of what happened while sobbing. She comforted me until my boss showed up, and we waited in the living room for the police to arrive and begin the investigation of the disc. When they arrived, they seized the disc and everything related to it. A detective then sat with me and told me they had checked his house. They found him hanging on a noose in his room, a note clutched in his hand, saying, "Revenge is sweet." The end. And that was Fallout 4 Revenge is Sweet by Truant12. I'll say before I begin my criticism that the author states this is the first creepypasta he's written. As such, I'll maintain some mercy. After all, we all have to start somewhere. I'll begin by saying, to the story's benefit, it is at least believable, and therefore realistic. The facets of Fallout 4 behave as they should, and Nick's ghastly photos and videos are at least reasonably sourced and implemented. And even more so, I can certainly believe that an ex-employee might try and get their revenge on their former company in the same fashion that Nick did. It truly wouldn't surprise me at all. I may even go so far as to say, tragically, that the most unrealistic part of that aspect is that Nick didn't take anybody else with him. But all of that said, at the end of the day, this isn't a very good creepypasta. It is quite short, and the exposition it offers doesn't have much to do with the full story. We barely learn anything about Nick, and it's also never explained how he, as a game tester, was capable of modifying Fallout 4's files to display the grisly images, as well as modify the voice files. But then again, that definitely does seem like something a crazy Fallout modder would do. and some have certainly done far worse. The main character of the story, Seth, is also quite bland and uninteresting. This would be okay if he were merely a conduit for a more interesting story, with more interesting aspects or characters. But as I said, the story is quite short, and it doesn't amount to very much. In fact, the entire premise of the plot is quite similar to another very popular creepypasta titled We Are Twisted, in which a Nintendo developer gets a Wii console that has been possessed by a former Nintendo employee. Something like that, I think. I wouldn't wish to imply that this is plagiarism, but even so, We Are Twisted did the whole deranged, disgruntled ex-employee far better than this story. Aside from that, I'm quite sorry that the summer of Fallout had to end with this story in particular. But it is, as I said, the market for Fallout creepypasta is, and was, quite small, so I had to take whatever I could get. But hey, that's life. I guess Fallout itself is creepy enough on its own, especially with all the mods I install in it. Thank you very much for watching or listening to this installment of Kachimuchi's Game & Spooks, and the final installment in the Summer of Fallout. Why not do us a kindness and leave a like, comment, or subscribe? And don't be afraid to leave any suggestions for any future creepypastas for me to narrate in the comments below. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to try and apply to be a game tester for Ubisoft Montreal. I bet the ex-employees there would certainly have a curse or two to put on their upcoming games. This has been Kachimuchi, and that's about all I have to say about that. Farewell.
You may take it or leave it at that, I don't care, I'm just gonna survive.